The Letter of Oblivion, written by an unknown author. So grab your coffee, sit back, and enjoy the show. I was about 7 years of age, and it was a dark, cold winter night. My father and I had just finished saying goodbye to our family members. It was Christmas Eve, and my aunt and uncle had just gone home from visiting. A simple family ritual done every year on Christmas Eve, as usual. Before I knew it, I had kicked off my winter boots and was in bed. My mom and dad came into the room and spoke with soft words to tell me goodnight. I couldn't wait for Christmas. It was my most favorite holiday of the year. The presents, the family dinner, everything just seems so perfect when it's the holiday season. Well, at this point I couldn't go to bed thinking of Christmas and wondering what could possibly be under the tree. But inevitably my eyelids grew heavier, and the light glow from the moon reflecting off of the snow was too soothing. Soon I was fast asleep. All of a sudden I was awake thinking it was Christmas. I was overjoyed to go open up presents, but I heard something odd. My parents were usually up and making breakfast. I am a pretty heavy sleeper. I heard as though it was a mumbling sound, not a "oh my god, it's a monster shit your pants" sound, but just enough so that I could hear it. Added on to the strange noise, I also heard big thumps for footsteps. We have wooden floors, so those of you who also do know what I'm talking about. Which was strange because even my father didn't make thumps that loud when he walked. So the curious and carefree child that I was, I went to investigate the noises. I checked upstairs, my parents' room, the bathrooms, everything, but found nothing. So the only two places left were the living room and the kitchen. When I stepped into the living room, I had found the source of the mumbling. It was my mother and my father, tied up with a rope, with cloths around their mouths in front of the Christmas tree and all of the presents. Suddenly I went in shock, as my parents weren't ones to play pranks either. Being scared, I rushed to the kitchen to fetch a knife to cut the rope. All of a sudden I heard a noise coming from the living room. It was the thumping again. I hurried back, and there next to my parents was a tall man in a black sort of robe-like thin cloth around him. It had a hood. He wore heavy, what seemed to be steel-toed boots. The most defining characteristic this mysterious man had was the mask he wore. The mask was black. It had huge holes for the eyes rimmed with metal. There was also a long plastic-looking string that was tied in a tight knot to keep the mask on. But the thing I remembered most was the horrifying black beak on the mask. It curved downwards almost like a hellish bird from a nightmare. Only this was real life. I was frozen in shock, standing there as the hellbird stared blankly back at me, as though eating the very soul from within my body. I did nothing, and seconds felt like total hours until finally the birdman spoke in a very light, formal, yet wisp-like voice, also revealing that he was a man, whether it really was a man or not. "I am the bringer of oblivion," he said. "What do you plan on doing, you bastard?" I replied. He simply snickered. Behind him I noticed he had a bag. He reached into the bag and pulled out a gasoline tank and started dousing my parents with the gas. I went to attack him, but he punched my stomach and I fell to the ground. It felt like he also broke some of my ribs. "Tisk, tisk, tisk. Now let's not be that way, okay? I expected you would sit and behave like a good little boy." He started covering the tree and presents with gas and then threw the tank down. It was also spilling gasoline everywhere. He grabbed me by the shoulder and threw me by the front door. "Merry Christmas," he said, dropping an enclosed envelope and a mask identical to his. He then took a big Zippo lighter and ignited it. He then threw the lighter to my parents, instantly engulfing them and everything in flames. He then jumped out of the window and ran into the dark woods behind our house. I watched as they were screaming in agony under the cloths and their skin started to melt away and char. I went to help them, but the house and everything was just so engulfed in flames. The last words I ever heard from my father was, "Just run, son, go and run as fast as you can." Or at least that's what I could make out from him. I went to run out of the house, knowing sadly and contemplating on whether to leave or not. I reached for the door and my foot stumbled upon something. It was the mask and the letter. For some reason I took that mask and letter. When I finally got a chance to open up the letter, my parents were long gone. All of my happiness crushed. The letter read as follows, from the bringer of Oblivion. I knew you would keep this. Hello, if you are reading this, then that means you are very lucky. I am the bringer of Oblivion, and this is your letter of Oblivion. With this letter was a mask I left with you as well. But more importantly, I left you with something much more. Anger. Ha 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 ha. Don't cry, because it will do no good whatsoever. I have left you with a task, and a new life you can choose to lead. Take this mask and keep these words in your head, because I know they will be burned into your memory. When you are older, or maybe even now, depending on when you are reading this, you can take this mask and do the deed I had done to you and your family to another. You can take the rage out of you. Don't worry, it feels good, I know. Burn the house and leave a letter and a mask identical to these to the youngest of the household, and burn the rest of them all. I know you can do this. I feel the fucking rage inside of you. It has consumed you, so release it. Do this, my child, and spread oblivion to wherever you may find it suitable. At the time I had read this, I had stayed at a foster home for God knows how many years, but he was right about the rage. It controlled my body, and sometimes I think to myself, what would happen had what had been done that night not have occurred? But there is no fucking way I would become him, I thought to myself. I am now 18 years old. The rage from that day and the letter are all still stuck inside of my mind. It is all burned there, even as I am dropping this mask and this letter to the legs of a very lucky 5-year-old little girl, who just happens to be the youngest of a family of 4. Hey family. A very big thank you to the unknown author for allowing me to narrate such an awesome tale. Be sure to check out their Creepypasta fandom profile for more of their awesome works. If you would like to support us and make a donation, I'd be very much appreciative. I do have PayPal and a Buy Me a Coffee account. Be sure to also check out our merch store. There are plenty of items and designs to choose from. If you enjoyed this video, then why not check out the next one? Here, on the right-hand side, you can also follow us. All my socials and all my other links are contained within the Linktree link below. Take care, everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful night. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.